Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Caccera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Caccera.
Welcome in, Joe Caccera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you very much for those that are following us on Facebook. We appreciate that you continue to follow. We continue to grow the show in many different ways. One of them is certainly social media, following on Facebook. However, what we'd love to have you do is download the podcast. Then that way you could listen to the show at your convenience when you'd like to. Number of different ways you can get the podcast. You go to iTunes, type in Real Estate Radio Live. You go to Stitcher, Google+, all these different places online. Or you could always go to our website, RERL-1561.com. That's RERL-1561.com. You could download the podcast there. Most of you know the focus of the show has always been education and information. We've really stretched out a little bit the last year or so and opened up some different opportunities for the show. If you've been following it for almost 3+ months now, we've had Jack Russo on. This is our 21 or 22, I think.
Yeah,
Jack?
It might be 23 or 24.
It could be.
We're all getting older here, Joe. What can I say? But I brought some young talent in today.
That's good. We could always use young talent, especially with two guys like us.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So as you know, it's been, about 4 months, 22+ shows. Jack and I have been doing a series on starting something new in Silicon Valley. The idea is we start right from the beginning on the startup. What do you do when you have an idea from really start to finish? And we've been making our way through, and we've covered a lot of areas. And today we're going to talk about data breach, specifically LinkedIn with the cyber fraud. Most of you following the show or listening to this know that this is a hot topic lately, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So who not better to bring in as the experts deal with this stuff all the time. So Jack, maybe you give us a quick, background and then introduce Lucy and have her do the same.
So I've got my associate, Lucy Goodnow, here, and she's become the expert on LinkedIn cyber fraud with me at Computer Law Group in Palo Alto, and we try to strive to help our clients do all the right things and try to avoid all the wrong things. And what happens, and these are cases that are coming up all the time, someone gets a good idea, grows a business, might even become a public company, might even become a public celebrity, like Elon Musk is, and then all of a sudden their identity is stolen. And literally places like LinkedIn are getting hacked, or probably really just getting used or abused in ways that create a new form of cyber fraud that you, as the executive CEO of the company, you may not even realize that your profile has been copied and is being used in all sorts of fraudulent schemes. So we get these calls all the time from CEOs, or usually it's from someone inside legal or HR, who says, hey, our CEO just found out that there's a second person, there's a second Elon Musk on LinkedIn. And it's not the original Elon Musk. Not that we do work for him, but I'm using that to make the point. Because he's been on lots of different venues, most recently, as we talked about last show, having a big podcast, shooting down some whiskey, smoking some marijuana. And people are taking stuff like that and using it to his disadvantage. And then he and the company have to police that activity, and there's no better police person on the planet for my money than Lucy Goodnow. So, Lucy, you could tell us more about what you do and what your practice is.
Very good. There you go. Step up to the mic there, Lucy. Give us a little bit about your background first.
So, deep background, I guess. I grew up back in the time when we didn't have LinkedIn and we didn't have Facebook.
Not old enough for that. Come on now.
We did not. LinkedIn started while I was in college. It was literally just basically putting the paper photo book that we all looked at each other's photos as freshmen.
Are you saying you're not a millennial? Are you saying you're not a millennial?
I've been saying that for years.
He looks like a millennial to me, Joe. But go ahead.
So it started back when I was an undergraduate at Stanford. I graduated in 2005. Went on to work for Jack several years later as a legal assistant.
Before law school?
Yes.
The way to do it. Learn the job before you have to actually go to put the time and money into law school. Make sure that you want to be a lawyer.
That's a good point.
It's the right way to do it. It's the old guild system. Right?
Yeah, it almost kind of seemed a little bit more like a backwards residency program to me. All my siblings have gone through medical school, and they start doing their rotations in clinical settings in their third and fourth year. We only get to a third year in law school. So but before I had even set foot in a law classroom, I had actually done pretty much clinical rotations through every aspect of Jack's practice.
Which means she was smarter than most of the law professors that were teaching her.
I could tell.
That's pretty good.
Wouldn't go that far. I don't think they would either. And then, I went to law school at Hastings and came back to work for Jack probably the first Christmas vacation and for after law school as well. And
Very
I've
good.
Been there.
So that's such a rare thing to have someone that you've helped to get into law school. And I just got an email, just to drop a footnote, from a guy that we helped get into law school. He actually decided to go to law school in Hong Kong. And he said, I can't believe the experience that I got at your firm, because now I'm arguing as the captain of the moot court team in competition in Hong Kong.
Wow.
And I'm hoping to make like the world championship. So when I hear stuff like that, I say, A, that's great. B, I'm getting old. When you see stuff like that and hear stuff like that. That's good.
Well, this is as you guys are talking, one of the things that I thought of is these Twitter accounts. One of the things. I mean, this is popular, right? They say at the real this, at the real that.
Yes.
There's a lot of that going on. There's a name for that too. When someone has a bunch of fake accounts.
Yes.
And they don't want to be disguised, or they try to take other accounts and act like it's some. I mean, it's the same type of thing, right?
So the general area is called cyber fraud.
Okay.
And what we've done is we've kind of broken it down. The general area is called cyber fraud, and the idea is that each silo of information, and we have at least a half dozen, because there's Twitter, there's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's Instagram. Yeah. There's all of these different silos. Google even has something that posts resumes as well. And you could think of as any place that there is some form of information about you where you're promoting yourself or your firm, even like the computerlaw.com website has all of our pictures, our resume information, links to various things. It is a source for criminals. Mostly overseas, but Donald Trump is right. Some may be sitting on a bed in New Jersey, kind of doing it at home, taking that information and reshaping it in a way that allows them to impersonate you and potentially get money or services or product from others who trust you.
Right.
Because essentially, if those people believe that they're getting an email from you, which there's lots of phishing attacks where emails are sent fraudulently to get you to respond, I mean, that enables transfer of value, money, product, services, whatever. It enables that. And the specific case today, and maybe we'll cover Facebook later, and it ties back to the conversation we had almost at the very beginning about how important terms of use or terms of services are, because that's what's going to govern what the site will and will not do to correct that fraud, and maybe to help you pursue it with the criminal or the civil courts. I have to tell you, the likelihood of a criminal action these days in the situation that involves this is very low. It's possible. So we're going to go through maybe 3 scenarios we see often at our firm, specifically involving LinkedIn. With the idea of educating your viewers and others about this could happen to you or can happen to someone that is in your organization. And then there are steps you can start to take on your own. At some point you may want to get some legal counsel about it. It depends on how far it goes. But in general, it's an area that's becoming more and more important as executives start to lose their identity to fraudsters.
This may be a crazy question, but so is it always the provider? Is it always LinkedIn? Is it always their problem or mistake? Or could it be a consumer that's doing something that they could be doing differently? Or is it no matter what, is it always LinkedIn's fault if something like that happens, a breach or something?
We don't even talk fault, but tell them, Lucy, your experience, what you see.
Well, it's more like if you think about why somebody would be trying to impersonate somebody on LinkedIn to begin with, it's not necessarily because they actually want to be you.
Correct.
Or,
right.
It's more because they have some kind of greater scheme that they're working, that they're trying to probably more likely victimize a huge swath of other people who don't know you.
Right.
But they want to just borrow your reputation and your plausibility for a minute. And these schemes usually work very quickly because they get discovered quickly. And what they try to do is just turn as much of a profit as they can off of as many credulous people as they can in a very short period of time, and then they're ghosts.
Right.
So that is their goal. And they don't want you to find them when they're done. And they don't want any other authorities to find them when they're done.
Okay.
So it's like a hit-and-run driver.
Yeah, right.
Racing away. There's even a song about that.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, they are getting away with repetitious hit-and-runs. There's, let's take the Fortune 500 companies. There's typically 10 to 20 key people in each of those companies. That's a target of 10,000 personalities. Elon Musk is just a good example. He's senior at Tesla, but there's probably 10 other people at Tesla that may have notoriety. And they can, for example, have their identity taken through a fraudulent LinkedIn for maybe a week and say, if you want a job at Tesla, send me $500 and we'll process your job application.
Right.
I'm in charge of HR at Tesla. And there will be people that will believe that. And they will say, hey, I sent $500 to this wire transfer or Bitcoin or something, and what happened to my job application? And, of course, it might take several weeks for HR to get complaints at Tesla. Hey, do you know what's going on at LinkedIn? And it's by that point, the person has gone, the account is maybe dormant, and the money's been stolen.
Right.
What do you do about that? Well, you've got to get LinkedIn to take down that account, but LinkedIn itself carries out what might be called certain due process that Lucy has been through several times and can talk about, where they want to make sure that you have a valid complaint, that you're not just retaliating against an ex-girlfriend,
it's a good point.
Ex-boyfriend, right? They've got to be fair.
That's a good point.
Right? So Lucy has seen this.
You got to vet it out.
They got to vet it out. That takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a scenario in which you, as the user, are the intended victim, and people are trying to elicit more personal and identifying financial, demographic, identification numbers, governmental identification information from you in order to perpetrate a victimizing fraud against you. But more of what we see are actually updates on what are versions of scams that have happened through the postal mail. In earlier generations, where people are sending fake invoices for services prospectively rendered, that kind of thing. So a lot of these are just updates on older stories.
Right.
And so most of the companies have a system put into place. They have, at that first instance, when you sign on, they're going to ask you to agree to their terms of service and various privacy policies and so forth. And within those terms of service is where you'll find the prohibited behaviors and the affirmative behaviors that they want their community to follow. And in a situation where somebody is doing something so simple as using your name and likeness for their own purposes, there's going to be a basis in those terms for saying, you're raising your hand to LinkedIn and saying, hey, this is not what I signed on for, this is not what the other person signed on for, can you do something about this? And so the first place that you usually want to look when you're in this situation, I'm going to back up, step 0 is going to be save the evidence for me.
Okay.
Right, don't destroy any of it.
Make sure that it can be as simple as making a screenshot
of it.
in a PDF and saving it. Something that has these automatically saved a timestamp and date when you created them, or at the very least make yourself a few notes. But having those screenshots is usually important down the line. And then the next place you look is, who do I go to? How do I go to them within the company? And LinkedIn has set up several different avenues that they have for the various types of complaints that people have. There's, trademark claims, there's copyright claims. Those are taken care of through copyright through the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. But right now we don't have sort of an overarching federal scheme for people's identities.
Which is unfortunate, which means there's 50 different states, so there's 50 different bodies of law. The body of law in California is actually very good about protecting your identity. So Joe Kuchera, Joseph Kuchera, all your variations on your name associated with your voice, your likeness, your identity, those are all things that are protected by state law in California. That may not be true per se, say in Nevada or Arizona or, Wisconsin. And yet, when you think of the national system of the Internet and the fact that LinkedIn is clearly worldwide, certainly national and arguably worldwide, your identity should be protected regardless. And regardless of where the fraudster is, you should be protected. But the reality is it may vary state by state, which makes this somewhat complicated. That's the first point. And then the second point is that the terms of service might or might not have a hook. Now, these are getting longer and longer, and one of the reasons is more and more scenarios are coming up because some scenarios might be protected by the First Amendment. For example, right now, Mr. Kavanaugh, Judge Kavanaugh's picture is all over the place, and there could be legitimate First Amendment uses of his identity to criticize him because he's in the news. He's a man of public interest. He's obviously getting a lot of airtime. I said if he doesn't make Supreme Court of the United States, he probably can run for president and get as many votes as Hillary Clinton or our current president has gotten. But the reality is that he's in the news, so there are people that are putting his likeness up and are criticizing him. Now, they may not be saying that they're Kavanaugh, but sometimes in the scheme of parody, they're pretending like he responds. So I saw a movie, just to drop a footnote, I saw a movie the other day that made me crack up. It was a scene and counter scene that had been mashed together of Kavanaugh responding to the gentleman that played the lead black role in Pulp Fiction. I'm forgetting his name now.
You're talking about,
Samuel Jackson. It is so funny. It runs for about 8 minutes, and it's like, I want to get your attention. And then this guy, you have my attention. And they mashed it together in a way that makes it look like a real conversation.
Yeah. Right.
You cannot take that down. That is a First Amendment protected. Someone could theoretically try to put that up on a LinkedIn with some sort of statement that it is a future interaction between Dr. Kavanaugh, Judge Kavanaugh, and Samuel Jackson, when it wasn't. It was just a parody of how that cross-examination should have gone, that it obviously didn't go in real life, and that's the point that's being made, and it's protected by the First Amendment. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, too, today.
Well, let's do this. We're going to take a quick break. This is for the purpose of the podcast, so those that are following us on Facebook, stick with us just one quick minute, and we'll be back with you to continue. This is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. We'll be back in just a minute to continue the show.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com.
How would you like the opportunity to secure a record low interest rate while buying and or selling your home? In addition, how would you like to save 20% or more on your entire real estate transaction? Finally, how would you like to bundle all your real estate services in one location? Well, now you can achieve this with BundleSelect.com. That's right, save on real estate lending and title. With BundleSelect.com, technology and a personal concierge are at your service to save you time and money. BundleSelect's hand-picked team of experts will save you thousands of dollars by bundling real estate lending and title services. BundleSelect.com gives you all the control, including using your own realtor. I'm Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live, and I have been on the radio educating consumers for years. I'm here to tell you BundleSelect.com is the best way to save money on real estate. By bundling services, you could save tens of thousands of dollars. Visit BundleSelect.com.
The estimated minimum savings are based on a comparison with the national average. Individual results may vary, and the estimated savings are not guaranteed. Bundle Select Inc. is a licensed real estate broker. California Bureau of Real Estate Broker license number 004666902.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's topic or guests, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back in. Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. We are today sitting in here with Jack and Lucy from the Computer Law Group. Lucy for the first time. Welcome in, Lucy.
Good
to have you.
Thank you.
Good to have you. Most of you know Jack by now. He's been on the show. We've had 22-plus segments, and today the topic is data breach in regards to LinkedIn with cyber fraud. And Jack and Lucy are going through this, and the idea today is to try to, and it's a lot to try to digest and get out in 15, 20 minutes, but get an idea of what to look for, maybe who to contact if something happens.
Right.
What's the recourse? What are the steps? So maybe we could continue with that.
Sure. So I've got 3 good examples to run through, and then we'll talk about various steps to be taken. And, none of this is well documented yet. We're going to put something on our website that does some disclosure of steps. But a good first example is there's a fake profile created of a real person.
Mm-hmm.
This must happen all the time
right.
to Elon Musk. I'm sure it happens, and that's why you said at one point the real Donald Trump.
Yeah, right.
He must have people putting it up with First Amendment commentary, and they're not saying the real Donald Trump because he'll take the view, well, that's false because I'm the real Donald
right.
Trump. Of course, people will say, well, you're mostly false most of the time, so you're not real. So there'll be a lot of criticism around that. But just the simplest case of your identity has been copied
mm-hmm.
and reproduced. And there's really 2 subcases, and we'll try to deal with both of them. You don't have an existing LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
That sometimes happens. They
mm-hmm.
copy stuff elsewhere. If you search Elon Musk on Google Photos or photos.google.com, you'll find millions of photos of his that can be copied. And they can be pasted.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be created into a fake Elon Musk or Elani Musk or some sort of name, because LinkedIn does not double, triple, or quadruple check anything. They don't have a know your customer regulation
mm-hmm.
yet for a LinkedIn or a Facebook site. Banks have a know your customer regulation. You got to see some ID. You got to log in. Maybe they're going to get to the point of fingerprints. The state bar now requires lawyers to have fingerprints. Like that was unheard of years ago. You just submitted your application.
Mm-hmm.
They took some maybe affirmation of an oath. Now they want you to be fingerprinted as a lawyer because there are people who are acting as pretend lawyers. Think about that. I mean, that can get you thrown in jail, right? But apparently that risk is taken.
Wow.
So the first one, Lucy, and you've seen this often, fake profile of
okay.
a real person
mm-hmm.
that has a LinkedIn account and has been duplicated to be a duplicate account. You've seen that for CEOs of companies. What have you done? What are the steps that you've engaged in?
Well, ostensibly, LinkedIn has 2 separate paths to take. One, if it's fraudulent information on a profile,
okay.
on a real person's profile, versus one that Jack is talking about where it's just a fake profile.
All right.
Right? Purporting to be a real
mm-hmm.
person is one example. And the path that they've set up, the way they've described it, is there's a flag button that you click on the screen
mm-hmm.
within the profile that just flags this and reports it as a fake profile.
Okay.
That one, I prefer actually the second path that you would use if it were fraudulent information, because to my reading, the fraudulent category is expansive enough to capture this particular transgression, because LinkedIn's terms of use say you're supposed to be who you represent yourself
right.
to be, like use your real name,
mm-hmm.
right? So if you're using Elon Musk's name and you're not Mr. Musk, then this is
right.
So there was a clear violation of
yeah.
a clear violation
right.
of the terms of use.
Yeah.
Right?
And I prefer that particular avenue because it opens up a form, and on the other end, it opens up a case number
mm-hmm.
that so they have a form of information that you're going to fill out. Here's the profile that I'm complaining about. Here's my complaint about it,
mm-hmm.
and this is the information in it that I'm complaining is in breach of the terms of service. And you make that submission, and it opens up a complaint number. And what they do is they seek a counter notice from the person on the other account, and that process they allow them, I believe, 5 days. It's the internal due process.
Right, because theoretically, Mr. Musk could have an identical twin.
Yeah, right.
Who happens to have changed his name to Elon, even though
mm-hmm.
his parents may have called him, something else.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, hey, I am Elon Musk, and I just happen to look the same. I mean, that's a rare case, but it can happen. Obviously, Elon will disagree and say, wait a minute, I'm that person. You're not the CEO of Tesla. You're not in charge of SpaceX. You're faking my identity. You may be my long-lost brother, but you can't do this to me.
Right.
And the due process that LinkedIn has to give has to actually go through dealing with that rare counter case that might exist. And I'm telling you something from a background point of view, a court will not touch this issue until you've exhausted the remedies that LinkedIn provides, because the court's going to say, I'm not going to micromanage how LinkedIn runs its business unless you really show me that LinkedIn sat on their hands, which is possible.
Right.
I don't think they do. I think they take this stuff pretty seriously. But if they take too long because someone gave them some cock and bull story about I'm the long-lost identical twin to Elon, we can talk about him because he's in the news. Not that he has such a brother, although who knows what will surface as a result of
You're helping the stock right
now, maybe. But at the end of the day, there's a process that courts will generally wait to hear. It's called exhausting your available administrative remedies or your available remedies without litigation. And most judges, most of the time, do not want to spend time on something they think other people can handle. So you don't want to go, so often we get these hot calls, I want you to get into court tomorrow. Get me a temporary restraining order. This has got to stop. We're like, we can't do that with a straight face without going through these other steps. And then they say, okay, we'll go into court the day after tomorrow. Well, probably a judge is going to say, come back. We just filed something last night. Everyone thought we would have gotten a date. It was a lot faster. We didn't. So everyone's like, why are we getting a faster date? Well, the court has its own way of doing things. That's just the way you have to accept it as part of this. So that's the first case, fake profile of a real person. Contact LinkedIn. Sometimes we've even contacted the FBI. Talk about that for a second. What have we done when that's happened?
Yeah, so there's actually something called IC3, which is a cooperative organization among the various federal crime fighting agencies and investigatory agencies that they've all pulled their resources and put on the web a place where you can make these complaints for the whole spectrum of cyber fraud, cyber crimes, invasions of privacy, that kind of thing. And in the cases where it's been warranted, we've tracked that evidence down and we've submitted those affidavits, and those are subject to the, under penalty of perjury, don't lie to the FBI kind of cautions.
I can imagine.
So you have a theoretical recourse with the police, but trust me, the police are handling murders and rapes and robberies. It's just not high priority. It just isn't going to get their highest attention. So you do have to go through the LinkedIn process, and you might have to go through some alternative processes, but by and large, this is pretty much going to be a LinkedIn negotiation. And you can ask them to speed things up if you can show that, hey, money is being transferred, people are being taken advantage of. You don't want a situation where people are going to think the brand of LinkedIn can't be trusted. This is a brand issue.
No, so if someone has this problem or this breach, would you suggest they first deal with LinkedIn, or would they get a hold of someone like your firm to help them right away? What would your recommendation?
The interesting part is the executives and the HR companies tend to want to use lawyers because they don't want to make a mistake. The truth is that unless it really is a high-profile situation, you probably can do it yourself most of the time. You probably can file all the stuff yourself. You probably can get some information off of the web or off of our website, computerlaw.com, to enable you to take steps. But, somewhere in the queue, there probably is some truth that LinkedIn will treat a notice from an attorney's office with a higher priority than a notice when there's not an attorney. Because it's like, hey, they've already hired an attorney. They're taking this seriously. That's just the way it goes in people's minds. So that's the first scenario. The second scenario is the fake profile of a real person and some use of the trademark of the company right? Because now you've got this nuance of the company's been dragged into this. Tesla's
so not just
name,
the person, now it's a company
not just
too.
Elon Musk. You got the Tesla name, the Tesla
logo, copyrights.
You got all of the stuff that brings in the company's name. What would be your thoughts on that, Lucy?
Well, in that case, earlier I was talking about the different reporting avenues that LinkedIn has siloed the various complaints into, and that's when you go back to their trademark reporting category. And a lot of the companies, the social media companies, have kind of put these in the same silo as with the Digital Millennium copyright violation reporting mechanisms. LinkedIn just happens to have two separate forms to fill out. A lot of the times if I'm handling this as an attorney, I like to actually belt and suspenders and cover a lot of bases, so I might send my complaints to multiple places.
All right.
But in that case, you've actually likely got your federally registered trademark, and you've got your federally registered trademark number that you can input in, and it goes into that emergent category that can help LinkedIn focus its investigation and its remediation.
Which gives you even greater credibility, because the message to LinkedIn is they have the potential to sue us for trademark infringement if we don't reasonably respond to the takedown demand. So this is going back to the advice given in lecture number 3 or 4. Get your trademarks registered, because that certificate of registration from the trademark office with its beautiful red bow and gold stamp signals this is a name that's protected by federal law. This guy's got no authority to do what he's doing. He's not only stealing the identity under state law, he's violating the trademark under federal law. And, you know, whether you're actually going to get to the bottom, and we're going to cover this in the third scenario, of who's actually doing the violations. And how do you do that tracing? Because remember, this is a fraudster. They're not using their own name. They probably didn't need to put a credit card number in, because this is a voluntary, hey, put your resume up here and promote like heck, because all the data is there, and that's valuable to LinkedIn. They want to have a community. They want the data. The data is valuable to them. You don't have to pay for it. You pay for it when you get the additional search functions and things like that from LinkedIn. So the third scenario is...
we have a couple minutes, so let's
give
get
the third one. Third scenario is the fake identity, LinkedIn identity, with the trademark, with some additional video or audio or animation copyrighted information. So what do you do with that one, the third one? This is like they've taken the whole house of cards, man. They're taking everything from you. They're taking your website. They're copying everything. They're copying your radio show. Your copyrighted radio show is being taken, Joe.
Yeah, well, at this point, I'm filling out all the forms.
I'll bet. Checking all the boxes.
The DMCA form, I'm filling out the trademark form, and I'm submitting the fraudulent profile information form, and probably also copying what I sent on several of those forms to the email address for the DMCA agent that I find in the terms of use, or through the Copyright Office, where they keep a registry of active DMCA.
And in the ideal case, you will already have your copyright registration certificate. You would have had your trademark registration, and you will have the ability to go to federal court for all the remedies if you need to go to court. But what you have to have in mind is, who's the defendant? LinkedIn is going to eventually take down the site. They'll eventually do that, or they'll certainly force some changes. If the site can somehow stay up using Elon Musk's name, I think that's impossible. But there's another version of this where they just put in, I worked for Elon Musk as the executive assistant, which might be false, and Elon or the company might want to change that. Comment quickly on that, Lucy. How do you get that little sort of resume information corrected? That there's a person's name up there saying that they were the financial executive, chief financial officer for Elon Musk's personal account. What do you do with that?
This is the one that tends to take the full 5-day period, in my experience, and sometimes spill over longer, because remember, it's the 5 days for the person to respond with a counter notice. So you're filling out the fraudulent information and saying this person did not work for me, did not have this, during this time, or did not have that seniority, or whatever is inaccurate, and then they're allowing the other person the time to respond, and then they're doing their investigation. And the result is, if it's a real person person on the other side, and he or she hasn't exhausted the number of chances that they're going to give him internally, then the profile will probably stay up with the errant information removed.
This is like resume inflation.
You know, one of the most frustrating things as we close this out, and I'll have you guys make sure I give your information, is that for most people I hear, myself too, when you have a problem with technology, with LinkedIn, Facebook, you can't get a real person.
No.
And that is very problematic.
They don't even publish their phone numbers.
No, I know. I mean,
anymore.
You have to text for an hour and a half before it's crazy. I don't know how people, I guess my point is, how do you get someone's attention quickly? I guess if it's fraud, you probably get the red flag comes up quicker, right? Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, this is where sometimes you do go to court, and the court acts more as a way to say, hey, this is a serious case. I want you to do something about it if you have to go to court. Because that's ultimately going to get the legal department and usually outside counsel involved. The bigger point on all of this is it's happening with more frequency.
Right.
So you have to be aware that there are steps that can be taken to get you ready for it. And if your business is a data-driven business, which more and more businesses are, I've seen articles that say the modern corporation will have no assets other than intellectual property assets and assets that are data or information assets. No hard assets. They won't have anything like factories or things that we're used to. It's like an information-based business. That's a modern corporation. Then you have to expect more and more that the violations of your rights will be intangible, difficult to trace, and I'll have Lucy spend 30 seconds on, we've been through the tracing where we serve subpoenas. Explain briefly what that process is like.
Well, you want to get to us fast, and you want to authorize us to act fast, because we're going to need to go to court on what's called an ex parte basis. It's one of the emergent bases to go in and ask for discovery before you have a named defendant served on the other side, to take third-party discovery, serving subpoenas. And a lot of it can happen, in my experience here, because a lot of the companies that are providing these services, the platforms that are being used, are located in our local Bay Area. Sometimes we have to go further abroad as we get deeper into the investigation, because, you know, LinkedIn will give us information, and then whatever email address was used to sign up for the account will give us information, and we'll uncover IP addresses, sometimes telephone numbers, ideally a credit card number or a PayPal link, something that hopefully terminates in one of these situations where there's a statute requiring somebody to have a verification, like Jack was talking earlier, with a real person.
Real person, real identity. A real defendant that you could actually sue for damages and maybe even attorney's fees.
All right.
Right?
Well, we're going to have to wrap it up. So before we do that, remind everybody where they could reach you if they need some help.
So Jack Russo and Lucy Goodnow, Computer Law Group. We're in downtown Palo Alto, 650-327-9800. Lucy is lucy@computerlaw.com. That works. Jack is jack@computerlaw.com, or jrusso@computerlaw.com, or Lucy's.
And if they forget all that, we have you permanently on our side as well.
Right. So you can reach us one way or the other. We're happy to talk to you.
Through LinkedIn, probably.
Yeah, we're even on LinkedIn. And so far as we know, our identities have not been stolen yet.
But let me just verify that this is the real Lucy and the real Joe.
The real thing. Thanks, Joe. And you're the real Joe.
That's right. Thanks, you guys. This is Joe Kuchera of Real Estate Radio Live. Thanks again for tuning in today. For more information, you could always go to RERadiolive.com. Until next time, take care. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com.